Well, it's 21 hours GMT, 9 p.m. local time. Good evening. Welcome to State of Affairs here on GHOne television, where we bring you detailed interviews and conversations on pertinent issues. Well, tonight there's so much to talk about, and I'm very sure that you might be aware already of what is happening in terms of our embassy in Washington, D.C., and the fact that the country has decided to shut down that particular facility temporarily over some fraudulent matters. Well, we'll touch a bit on that, and then we'll zoom into the conversation for tonight. So as advertised, we're having a conversation tonight with Kwame Danso. He's the 2024 running mate for the movement of change, movement for change, I should say. Alan John Kodjo Chamatin, he was his running mate in the 2024 general elections. We'll talk about what the future of that party is, and also touch on all the critical issues that have gained prominence in the country over the last couple of weeks right here on State of Affairs. I am Joshua Kodjo Mensah. And so remember, the show is always brought to you in association with MTN everywhere you go. And then we'll get into the conversations now. You're a big part of the conversation, so we invite you to join us on Facebook, on X, and also on YouTube. And let's share your thoughts, your comments, your views, and contributions. And I will make time to make sure that I get to the questions that you would have for my guest tonight. He's already seated, but like I said, we'll touch a little bit on the issue regarding the Washington D.C. embassy in our embassy there, and matters arising. We are told that some fraudulent activities have led to the country taking the decision to temporarily close down that facility. We'll have a conversation on that shortly, but let me walk you through exactly what the details of that particular conversation is, as revealed to us by the Minister for Finance, the Minister rather for Foreign Affairs, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. And so I'll take you to my screens currently and bring you that particular detail, as we are told that this particular incident started from far back 2017, August 11, 2017. And then we are told that the investigation corroborated by the man at the center of all of this, who is a local staff member at the IT department of the Ghana Embassy in Washington, D.C. He has corroborated all the issues that have been raised against him in his own admission, we are told, and he revealed that he created an unauthorized link on the embassy's official website, which redirected visa and passport applicants to his private company. And the name of the company is Ghana Travel Consultants, GTC. So let's tell you more. Now, we are told that with that particular diversion from the website of the embassy in Washington, D.C. to the one that he created, which was his company, now he charged from $29.75 to $60 per applicant. Now, these charges, and approved by both the Ministry and Parliament as mandated under the Fees and Charges Act, were pocketed into his private account. That's what we are told from the Minister for Foreign Affairs, that the man charged between $29.75 and then $60. That's what he charged the applicants to get that done. And all of that money did not come to the coffers of Ghana, but it went to the private company, GTC, as created. Now, evidence suggests that the fraudulent scheme operated for at least 5 years. So for 5 years, we saw this particular incident happen. And then his actions have been reported to the Attorney General for possible prosecution and recovery of misappropriated funds. That's some good news. Now, after all of this, what has happened? Now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs personnel, all of their personnel currently posted to the Washington, D.C. mission, have been recalled with immediate effect pending further investigation. Now, these are the actions that have been taken by the country Ghana. Now, all locally hired staff at the embassy have also been placed on immediate suspension while investigations continue into the matter. There's more that has been done. Let's tell you. Now, the entire IT department of the embassy has been promptly dissolved to allow for a thorough audit and reconstruction of digital systems. Mind you, this particular breach we are seeing, which resulted in the visa fraud incident, was as a result of an IT deficiency. We are told that he created a link, and so to allow for thorough audit of that digital system, the IT department of the embassy has been promptly dissolved. Now, the Auditor General has also been formally invited to conduct a forensic examination of all financial and operational transactions at the embassy. Now, the aim is to determine the full extent and cost of this elaborate fraud. So yes, we do know that he charged between $29.75 and $60, but then how much really has been lost as a result of that. Now, Ghana's embassy in Washington, D.C. will be temporarily closed for a few days to allow for comprehensive restructuring and a systems overhaul. And this, clearly, we couldn't have avoided it. Once you have asked the people who work there not to go to work, clearly, the embassy will not be functioning. And so we apologize for any inconvenience. Yes. So this is what we're being told by the Foreign Affairs Ministry, that's the situation there as it stands now. But let's get some clarity on this matter. Let's have a very short interview, short engagement on this particular matter. Nana Ayeh Asafo-Adjei is Deputy Ranking on the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, and he has joined me on the phone lines to talk about this matter. Nana, thank you. So when you first heard of this, really, what ran through your mind?
Thank you, my brother. I want to greet you and greet your cherished listeners. So, I woke up this morning to the news. I was shocked and surprised to hear something of that nature. Sincerely speaking, in my few years and experience of engagement in the diplomatic circles, this is the first time I am hearing such a thing. And this is the first time I am picking any indication that Ghana has ever done that. Now, let me place on record that myself, my ranking, Honorable Samuel Abu-Jinapong, and the members of the committee, particularly the minority, are not against any decision, any plan, any whatsoever measure the government or the minister seek or sought to do to cleanse the system, to make sure things are working, to punish wrongdoers or anything of that sort. We are not against it. In fact, we even want to recommend some other state sanctions and measures to help recover the money that we have lost as a country. We do not agree. And what we vehemently, appall or condemn is the total closure of the embassy. No. Look, every embassy we have is an embodiment, the symbolism of the country in that respective or the host nation.
So it doesn't matter that we're told that the embassy has been closed temporarily to allow for system overhaul and among others? It doesn't matter?
So let me tell you, I am saying that the embassy represents Ghana.
Right.
There are a lot of things that happen in the embassy. There are trade protections in the embassy. There are a lot of trade correspondence. There are a lot of scholarship issues, diplomatic discussions that goes on in every embassy. So for you to close an entire embassy because one segment, passport or visa or an alleged fraud is happening there, and you shut down an entire embassy, not any embassy like the Washington embassy, that's the height of it. Why would you do that? Because of visa fraud. Not to say that we think that visa fraud is not anything. It is something. But why would you start down it? It is like Okude closing Ghana in Washington. That is what it needs. And that is what we disagree. And if you had engaged much together or better, we wouldn't have taken that decision. We could have done all the things we want to do without closing the embassy. We could have set up a new system, employees and bring in new set of people. We could have done everything without closing the embassy.
Closing the embassy was a very wrong move.
Absolutely. It is uncalled for.
Right.
It shouldn't have been. That is our position. And we take that. Now, number two, you see, you can do some of these things in other ministries. You can place camera on the miners and go and arrest them in public and tell the whole country we've apprehended the miners, we are doing this, we are doing that. Yes. But in the foreign ministry, some things are discreet. Right. Some things are sensitive. Some things are very, very tactful. And that is why we call it the diplomatic setup. So when I say you must handle this diplomatically, I'm not saying that allow the perpetrators to do what they are doing. No. But you can do that without necessarily putting the image, the brand name of Ghana into such a disrepute. Look, you know the IT director that have been indicted. I don't know the person. Whether you...
Well, in what we are told, his name is not mentioned anywhere.
No, I'm saying that whether you put out the name, whether you put out the image, whether whatsoever, nobody takes that. But the image Ghana in the mindset of the international community
right.
has been tainted because of one post from a minister. A blogger could have done that. Any other person could have done that. But you have come from the minister. It is sending a signal to the international community that we cannot even manage our internal controls. And that is our problem. That's our issue. You cannot just wake up as a minister and say that you have a representative in another man's country without putting in proper measures. Then you write from your Facebook page post that you have from immediate effect been terminated or whatsoever English you used. What's the meaning of that?
Right. So, Nana, what really are you looking forward to in the coming days? You say the decision to close the embassy temporarily is a wrong one. It doesn't send the right signal. Would you want the minister to recall that decision?
As soon as possible.
Right.
As soon as possible. That is, like I told you cannot close Ghana. Then we feel comfortable about that. No, you cannot. It is not done. It is not important. It is not proper. So as soon as possible, measures must be put in place to ensure that the embassy is running and popping.
Okay.
You can have your own issue to take your time to do your setup, to close the system with visa issues. You can do that. That one is fair. It is under your ministry and your leadership and your diocese.
Okay.
But you do not close the embassy.
Right. Nana, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the state of affairs. That's Nana Ayeh Asafo-Adjei, Member of Parliament for Bosome, Freho, and also the Deputy Ranking on the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, also sharing his thoughts with us on this developing issue. He says that the minority believe that it's totally wrong for the minister to announce this, especially the closure of the embassy, because he believes this is the closure of Ghana in Washington, D.C., and that does not send the right signal. Remember to get interactive with us on social media. We're still live there, and I will be dovetailing into our main conversation for today, which is a one-on-one conversation with the running mate to Movement for Change, the Alan Trematin's running mate in the 2024 general elections, Kwame Danso, who is joining me. He's in the studio. He's paid attention to the conversation we just had on the raging challenge with our embassy in Washington, D.C., and then the action taken by the Foreign Affairs Minister. Kwame Owusu is here. Kwame, good evening.
Josh, thank you very much.
So you listened to the Deputy Ranking. I mean,
yes.
That conversation has been heated since morning.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the dance of the hen will never please the hyena. I think that Samuel Okuyeto-Ablakwa, as the foreign minister, looked at the issues, assessed them, and decided, in consultation perhaps with the President of the Republic of Ghana, to take this very important decision. Bear in mind that, it borders on credibility. Integrity of the country is also important in this matter. And so any such decisions that ought to be taken must be taken, with consultation or in consultation with people who, have important roles to play in some of these matters.
Right.
Yes, it happened in the United States of America. Yes, we do not understand the depth, of the malpractices, which obviously were started either by the IT or IT director or some other person. So I think it's important that, he closed it so that proper investigation can be opened into the matter. Bear in mind that it also happened on United States soil.
Yeah.
Even though foreign missions are supposed to be, representative of the country that you represent. But if indeed those monies which were stolen, for want of better expression, by the said IT person was used to purchase, for instance, assets in the United States of America, then I think that, the the United States of America ought to be involved in this matter so that finality will be brought to it.
Right.
It is important that at all material times, when we are given an opportunity to serve the country, we do so, with the country in mind, not our parochial interest. And I think on this occasion, that is what has happened. People do things to benefit themselves as opposed to, the harm that they may bring to the country. And so, I think Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa has done what he needed to do.
But the minority say it doesn't send the right signal.
Yeah, that's why I started with a proverb, that no matter how beautifully the hen dances to any tune, it will not please the hyena.
Right.
We live in a country where when you are in government, everything that you do is rubber stamped by your peers. But when you are in opposition, everything the government in power does, you are displeased by them. It's normal. And this is symptomatic of the kind of politics that we've been practicing from 1992. That if we are in opposition, no matter the decisions that are taken by governments in power, whether it is in the interest or the collective interest of all of us, whether it is good for the forward march and the development of this country, insofar as we are not the ones in government, we will never be pleased by them.
Right.
And so this is evidently clear by the statement that we are hearing from the opposition. The question then becomes, if they were in government, what would have been their own decision on this matter?
Right.
Would you have allowed for the system to operate the way it is, a system which has been corrupted, a system which has benefited some people, or you would have closed it down, sanitized the system, reopen it, and then get fresh hands, and perhaps even change the whole technical outlook of the mission,
right,
so that in the final analysis, the country will benefit. And the image of the country, in terms of country benefit, in terms of revenue that will come in, and the image of the country will also be protected. These are very important matters that I think that we ought to discuss dispassionately. And I am of the firm conviction that this decision that has been taken by the Foreign Affairs Minister was done in good faith.
Right.
It was done to salvage what is left of the reputation of this country. It was done so that in the final analysis, all the other missions will take a cue, from what would happen in the event that, from this decision, that in the event that they also engage in some of these small practices, what will be the decision of the Foreign Affairs Minister. So I think it's early days, yes, yet, but the decision, in my estimation, is not a misplaced one at all.
Okay. And you mentioned in your submission that it is symptomatic of the system we've practiced here, where once you are in power, everything is okay. Once you're out of power, whatever government does not appeal to you. And it's one of the things that I remember that your flag bearer, Alan Tremartin, mentioned that, we want to break this whole issue of politics and then focus on nationalism, focus on raising a Ghana that benefits everybody. Unfortunately, you did not get the nod in 2024. What has become of Movement for Change?
Well, I think that clearly the issue of the duopolistic nature of a political architecture is something that we've all come to know and accept, sort of. It is going to be a now journey to think that we are going to change that in a matter of years. It is going to take a while to be able to change the thinking patterns of the Ghanaian people to accept an alternative. Because of, again, the influence and the impact that these two political parties have had in our lives. And so, what the lessons that we've obviously learned from traversing the country and, appreciating the plight of the people and getting the opportunity again to understand firsthand what the people are going through, is that there is that, newness in terms of our appreciation of what politics ought to be in the 21st century. There is that appreciation of the fact that political parties that we give our confidence to, political parties that we vote for, are supposed to do certain things for us. But, when they are given the opportunities, they don't do those things for us. People have become more aware of, what should characterize our political, architecture. Now, it stands to reason, therefore, that what the movement ought to do is to consolidate our efforts and to make sure that we become a formidable third viable option to the two political parties. And so, of course, there will be a lot more grassroots engagement. We'll continue to contribute in our own little way to the development of Ghana, because if you are seen as a rival, group to important matters of this country, if you always rival, if you always, think so negatively about even positive things that are happening in this country, people would see you differently. People ought to know that in matters where everybody is speaking with one voice, everybody is headed towards a certain direction, you are also part of the stock, heading towards that direction. But if you are always opposing to positive things, people would know that you are not genuine and that all you care about is how you can, just engage in politics of division so that you can now win power. And so we are very strategic about how we're going to do our things, consolidating exactly our effort and making sure that going forward, Ghanaians will see what we also have to offer as a movement. And of course, we demonstrated that through the birth of the Great Transformational Plan, which obviously became the bedrock of our campaign,
the GTP,
and which resonated really with the Ghanaian people.
But did it? Because you got under 33,000 votes in total.
I don't want to go to the nuances of that. There are multiplicity of factors that accounted for that. But again, it tells you that people were yearning for change. Ultimately, what is imperative is that the change that we were all yearning for, we got. Irrespective of whether or not, it's not a movement for change. We were a movement that wanted change. It could have been a change for the movement for change or a change for another political party. Unfortunately, the NDC won. And so all the things that we were talking about, the fights and the struggles that we were engaged in, was so that Ghanaians would be liberated from the shackles of the then MPP political party. And that is what has happened.
Right.
So it is immaterial, really, whether we have 33 under 33% or 2% or 1%. What is most instructive is how our contribution changed the political dynamics of this country. Whether you like it or not, the inclusion of Alan Kodjo Kyerematen changed the political atmosphere. People began to now look beyond the peripheries of the two political parties and to consider a third viable option, which, by the way, was very plausible and is still plausible. But again, I tell you that based on some internal research that we did, it became axiomatic that even though people wanted a new leader, people wanted Alan Kodjo Kyerematen to lead the country, they were not certain whether or not we would be able to win the election. And in elections, people usually gravitate towards the party that they think immediately has the wherewithal or the power or, is well organized really to win the election. So even though they may not necessarily want to vote for one political party, they will not vote for it because they think that, if we vote for this one, he may not win. And the other one that we want to sack would rather win. So then let's support this one because this one appears formidable. So there are different varied reasons that accounted for the performance of the movement for change. But again, like I told you, a lot of people also decided not to vote in the 2024 elections by reason of the inclusion of Alan Kodjo Kyerematen, in the race. So all the disgruntled people in the MPP, people who thought that Alan Kodjo Kyerematen was not treated properly by the party and were very disgruntled and had wanted Alan Kodjo Kyerematen to lead the MPP, decided to stay away. So, yes, we are MPP. We're not going to vote for NDC, but we're not going to vote for MPP.
Right.
Yeah. So, again, these are, some of the issues that
and based on that same scenario, some say the 2024 elections, is done for Movement for Change, because now there are calls for general amnesty for disgruntled members of the MPP, including Alan John Kodjo Kyerematen, to return to the party. When that happens, Movement for Change will be done completely.
There is no such evidence of those conversations. As far as I know, nobody has reached out to Alan Kodjo Kyerematen to ask him to return to the MPP. In any event, the question that we should be asking is, why did Alan Kodjo Kyerematen leave the MPP? He left the MPP on the basis of ideological, differences. That what actually gave birth to the party had eroded, and what now people were using as the basis for belonging to that political party was at complete variance with the foundational blocks upon which the party was built. And so, if you believed in the ideology, the foundational blocks, what the forefathers of the party thought of when they were building the party, and you were really a party person, and you get to the point where you would notice that monocracy had taken over the foundational blocks, monocracy had taken over the ideology of the party, and vandalism and all of that had taken over the party, you would want to stay away. And Alan Kodjo Kyerematen is not the only person who moved away from the movement, from the NPP, on the basis of principle. Okay, so he took a principled position and left the party. You can hate him, you can insult him, but I think that principles are principles, and they are either wholly kept or wholly abandoned.
Right.
And that is precisely what he did.
But the reason why I'm saying this is that I've had conversations with NPP bigwigs, and they've mentioned that, well, they have also understood why they lost the elections, because they allowed for key members of the party to be disgruntled, to leave the party. And you mentioned Alan left because of ideological differences, because he believed that what was the NPP that he joined has become totally different. Now the party says they are restructuring, and as part of the restructuring, they want to reach out to all of these people. Does the movement for change have a future, especially maybe in the 2028 elections?
I just gave you, as by way of my preliminary comments, that the movement for change is consolidating its efforts to becoming a third viable option.
So returning to the NPP is not an option currently.
As I speak to you now, there is no evidence of such thoughts filling the minds of the leading members of the movement for change. What I'm saying to you is that if there's ever going to be such conversations, I'll be privy to those conversations. I would know what will go into those conversations. Again, the MPP sublimely admits that the exit of Alan Kodjo Kyerematen affected them greatly, but they have decided not to make it so pronounced. And so oftentimes you would notice that they do what we call flying the kite. So sometimes they allow some of their people to post the picture of Alan Kodjo Kyerematen, then they go around to get other people to comment, to create the impression that he is not as important as he thinks he is, and so if he were to return to the party, it is not going to add or bring any value to the party. I beg to differ on these matters. They know that one of the fundamental reasons that cost them in the 2024 election, beyond the mismanagement of the country, is the exit of Alan Kodjo Kyerematen. And internally, they would admit that that is precisely what happened. I am saying that perhaps, I don't know, I'm not in the mind of Alan Kodjo Kyerematen to make a determination whether or not he will return to the party in the event that they extended, an invitation to him. But one thing I'm certain of is that the movement for change intends to become a viable third force within the political architecture of this country.
How's Alan, by the way?
How's what?
Alan, how's he doing?
Resplendent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll come back and talk more about the movement for change. But you are a private legal practitioner.
Yeah.
There's been so much happening recently,
especially
with the removal of the CJ and all the petitions. What do you make of all that is happening?
Well, I think it's just an issue of judicial independence and, if you like, executive overreach, where there is that, confusion as to whether or not the procedural processes which were followed by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama undermines judicial independence. Now, the question then becomes whether or not, when the president received those petitions, he should have acted on them. Indeed, he is enjoined by the Constitution, which is the mother document which governs all our operations in the country, to take action in the event that persons present petitions to him. Right. In this instance, we are told of 3 separate petitions which were forwarded to the president. Now, the president, in accordance with the provision of the Constitution, decided to action on them, by forwarding same to the Council of State, who would then advise as to whether or not, a prima facie case has been established. Now, there is nowhere in the Constitution which stipulates that we should give an opportunity to the person against whom the petition has been filed to write a response. The President granted that opportunity to the Chief Justice to so do. Now, flowing from that, also that the Constitution also enjoins the President to procedurally take actions after a prima facie case is established, or after a committee has been put together to go into the matter proper, which is to suspend the Chief Justice. So that is where the contention is.
Right.
That does the President have what it takes to suspend the Chief Justice? And that gave birth to the myriad of suits that we about 5 of them or so that were sent to the Supreme Court. And the last determination that was, I think it was even it was a 4-1 or so, right? Now, clearly, if you want to go strictly by the provisions of the Constitution, the President has not erred. I think the question that perhaps people are interested in is whether or not there is some transparency in that process.
Yes.
So if we're going to have conversations about transparency, then we should have those conversations devoid of questioning the President whether by strictly adhering to the provision of the Constitution he had breached or he had violated the laws. Because that's what the law says. Absolutely. No, but you see, the bone of contention is born out of mischief. And clearly, because look, if the President receives a petition, he ought to do X, Y, Z. It is not within the prerogative, or the President does not have the prerogative to make a determination, ab initio, when petitions are forwarded to him. He can't say that, I've received the petition, I find nothing wrong with it, so I've thrown the petition away. No, that will be in actual breach of the Constitution. You get the point. And you and I can go to court and deal with that matter, because the Constitution enjoins us as citizens that in the event that someone flagrantly violates, rapes, disregards the Constitution, we can go for constitutional interpretation and perhaps even impeach the President for failing to adhere to the provisions of the Constitution. So that was even a non-conversation to begin with. Now, it is instructive to acknowledge that at every step of the way, if we are being candid with the fact, if we want to speak the truth, the President of the Republic of Ghana had at all material times complied with the provisions of the Constitution. And the Constitution is a supreme law of the land.
Right.
Okay? So if we are talking about an aspect of the process that we have a problem with, we can raise them. But raising them does not nullify the President's, right under the Constitution to do an act. And so I find that, to be just political hypocrisy, that, let's stir things up, let's create some controversy around it. By the way, it's a novelty. It's a novelty. We've never gone through the process of, removing a Chief Justice. It's a novelty. This is the first time things are happening. Now, it is also a matter of confusion or contention by reason of some pronouncements which were made by the NDC when they were in opposition, particularly by reason of some of the decisions which were reached by the Supreme Court in relation to matters which involved the NDC. So NDC, some members of the NDC made some pronouncements. And so it is against the backdrop that people think that this is politically motivated.
Indeed, the MPP and those who are against the decision of the President to suspend the Chief Justice say there is a grand scheme based on even pronouncements made by the President himself that he was going to balance the judiciary. So they see this as a move to be able to achieve that particular...
What did Ghanaians really vote for? Ghanaians saw Movement for Change, Great Transformational Plan. Saw the NDC's reset agenda.
Right.
And the MPP's, what was it? What was this? Something. Right? And decided to opt for reset. Now, as part of resetting the country, you do know that in almost all of the sectors of the economy, we have issues. If in the estimation of the President, we have declined in terms of our trust in the judiciary, and that something ought to happen. And, people also agree that in resetting the country, we must reset the judiciary. And on the basis of that, have filed a petition, all right, for the removal of the Chief Justice. Bear in mind that these were not just frivolous, maybe claims which were made against the CJ. These people actually backed their petitions with evidence, all right. And in the respectful response by the CJ, it's evident that even she admitted that some of the travels, etc. So these matters, right? So clearly, these are legitimate concerns. These are legitimate claims in the petition. Now, yes, you can agree that yes, it's politically motivated and all of that, but you can't also exclude the question of judicial bias. You understand, which underpinned some of the decisions which were reached by the court, which matters were evidently amplified by the NDC. And so yes, even though you are talking about political machinations, which are whatever it is, but it emanated from what? So that question has not been answered
yet.
You understand? Right. Once we answer the question, then people who are questioning the decision of the president in complying with the provisions of the Constitution will think twice.
Quite interesting. And in all of this, we saw the committee set up. And the Chief Justice herself has gone to court. She has a problem with the committee.
Yeah.
She raises fundamental issues on each member of the committee, from Justice Poamang, Daniel Domelevo, Justice Adibu, Asiedu, Major Flora. She feels that there are reasons why these people should not be on the panel.
There are reasons why judges give their decisions. There are reasons why we have the majority and the minority. People obviously will not be happy, if in their estimation they think that, well, these guys are not people that I'm in good terms with, and therefore they would not represent truly my interest. In the final analysis, I believe that once there's transparency, once rule of law is respected, and there's that fairness in the hearing, and issues are presented, facts obtained, evidence adduced, and the committee reaches its decision, it should be binding on all the parts. I really have not. I don't understand the reasons assigned for her disagreement with the individuals who have been appointed to be part of the committee. But even if you look at them individually, these are well-respected citizens of this country. Justice Poamang, Scott Poamang, is one of the most fantastic judges we have, Supreme Court judges we have in the country, and undoubtedly one of the best. You get the point. Yao Demelevo is on record to have been a serious Auditor General in this country, exposed a lot of the ills and the rots that happened in the previous administration. In fact, is even still exposing some of the rots, or perhaps some of the imbalances, if you like, in this particular administration, and the others. All wonderful judges. I respect them. If she doesn't, perhaps she has her own reasons. I don't know which reasons she assigned, but I think that we should just allow the system to operate and flow. And in the final analysis, all of us will be confident knowing that the system, gave a verdict that is in consonant with the Constitution of Ghana.
Right, so we are still having a conversation on national issues here. It's a one-on-one with Kwame Danso, the 2024 running mate to Alan Kodjo Martin on the ticket of the Movement for Change. We are looking at all the issues that have come to the fore in the past weeks, and we just talked about the CJ matters arising. What we do know is that the committee that was set up is still doing its work. The CJ met with the committee last week, raised some fundamental issues because yes, she's in court challenging the constitution of that particular committee, and so we'll get to know in this week exactly how that will pan out. But let's talk about Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa.
Yeah,
the minority say he needs to resign. Why? Because of the mode of transport of the vice president, the private jets, when she came back from her medical leave. Is this much ado about nothing, really?
Well, so let me seize this opportunity to extend my hearty greetings to Her Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Professor Nana Ayeh Asafo-Adjei. I welcome her back into the country to continue with the good work they've started. To say that I've only rented my office to her. because I'm coming from my office in 2028. Anyway, that is by the way. But more importantly,
right,
Josh, let's be serious in this country. All right? Contextualize Okudjeto's comments, Okudjeto's exposés, and that of the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. In Okudjeto's exposés, okay, the President of the Republic of Ghana, even though we had a private jet, was engaged in profligate expenditure by the way it conducted itself, by how it was always, renting private jets for some assignments. Remember the COP23 and all of that, and the amount of monies that the taxpayer had to pay for those travels. So it is a question of frequent travels as opposed to a necessary travel. Now, here's a vice president who suddenly took ill, traveled to the UK for medical attention, was discharged, and came home with a private jet, right? Now, there's not been any evidence, first of all, as to even how much that flight cost the state. There's no evidence as to whether or not the state paid for it. There's no such evidence. So it is just a matter of political equalization. That because when we were in opposition, Okudjeto Ablakwa had exposed some of the travels that we embarked upon, now is the time for equalization. But you are equalizing without recourse to the facts, because the facts, as we have it, are very different. You get the point? So, and that is why, sometimes political hypocrisy, if not dealt with, can make people run mad, because you are in such haste to equalize, and so in the process of doing that, you will leave your brain behind and just wade into conversations that are immaterial or irrelevant to the context within which you are supposed to advance those arguments. Now, it is on record, and if you don't know, find out that in MPP's administration, you had people flying out of this country to the United Kingdom to go and buy pizza. Some flew out to go and watch.
On record?
Oh, Masa. Some flew out to go and watch football matches.
And you have evidences?
By the president, didn't he fly to go and was it Tottenham Hotspur or something? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
At the expense of the taxpayer. Now, these are not, in my estimation, necessary travels or travels of necessity. It was travels of leisure and luxury. Juxtapose same with the vice president's, travel from the United Kingdom to Ghana. So that is why I posed a very harmless question, whether or not they wanted the vice president to come in Abuboya, because hers is a one-off event.
I spoke to Vincent Asafo. He says that the vice president could have flown first class in any other flight. It's capturing a private jet.
But what I'm saying is that, listen, what I'm saying is that the vice president of the Republic of Ghana was unwell. So we need not move away from that conversation. It is not a question of whether or not she flew to go and watch Arsenal match, or she flew to the UK to go and eat pizza. Do you understand what I'm saying? It was for health reasons. That is why she went to the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
All right? And I think that, we need to pack our conscience behind some of the utterances that we make. It is so unwise for anybody to do this comparative analysis without proper emphasis on the context. Do you understand? In one breath, we were questioning the frequency of the travels and the relevancy of those travels. In another breath, we are also talking about the frequency and the relevancy of it. So marry the two and weigh them and see which one, cost the state so much and which one was necessary for us to do. So it is an unfair position. I think that we must elevate our politics in this country. I think that we are sinking so low. I want to believe that particularly the young people,
right?
Those who have mothers, those who have older grannies, I think should have some conscience really. And in having these conversations, place their conscience behind some of the utterances that they make. The MPP is under some settled, hopeless expectation of equalization. It's not going to happen. Because even though, yes, Movement for Change wants to come into power in 2028, we don't wish evil for the country.
Right.
And if we don't wish evil for the country, by extension, we want this government to succeed.
And are they succeeding so far? How are they doing so far?
I think so far, not bad. If you look at some of the policy directions, the policy initiatives that they've introduced, it is telling of the government's commitment to really reset the country.
Right.
In the final analysis, if indeed we are able to reset the country, all of us would benefit. If you were a market woman and the prices of goods and services went down, you would benefit. Similarly, if you were the consumer and you went to the market, insofar as those prices have come down, it will also have an effect on your pocket, because then you can take small money and buy the things that you need. So all of us must come together with one voice, with one energy, put our hands on deck, and make sure that this country succeeds. Now, if you look at education, for instance, I think they held this education forum,
National Education Forum,
yes, ostensibly to sanitize the whole educational setup and look for possible ways of redefining and realigning our educational system in this country. It has to happen. It must happen. We must forge a path of progress, a path of educational realignment, and so that our children and younger children and children yet unborn would benefit from our educational system. It is very, very important. Now, if you look at, for instance, the performance of the currency right now, I think it's also telling of the intercourse between fiscal policy and monetary policy. Fiscal policy managed by the finance minister, monetary policy managed by Dr. Johnson Esiama. There's that intercourse, and whenever there is that marriage between the performance of fiscal policies and monetary policies, the resulting effect is that you see a huge improvement in your currency. So, for instance, we are saying that in terms of expenditure, we are going to be frugal with what we spend on and how much we spend. If we are going to spend on things that are irrelevant, things that will not rake in so much, we are not going to spend on that. So I think that on the basis of that, they are on the right path.
Right.
And then on the monetary aspect, they are also on the right path.
I know that your candidates handed over the GTP to the administration. Are you seeing the expression in the policy so far?
Yeah. So there are some aspects of the Great Transformational Plan that I think the President has looked at, because he himself admitted that he was going to steal some portions of the Great Transformational Plan and implement it, because those aligned with the NDC's reset agenda. And so, we are looking at economic transformation, we are looking at governance restructuring, we are looking at constitutional reviews, albeit that the things that are in the Great Transformation therein, in relation to some constitutional reviews, all of them really are not or have not been implemented by John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency. But by reason of the fact that there's a constitutional review committee that's been put together to look at our constitution, review certain portions of it which does not align with contemporary times, I think that is a step in the right direction. Now, if you also look at governance, for instance, we wanted to reduce our ministers to 40. He wanted to do 60.
And he's done 56.
So it's a big feather in his cap. that at least you have people who sort of think alike, and so we are looking at 40 here. He has looked at 60. In the final analysis, we've saved the country so much, and that is what is important. So if you look at youth development, for instance, you've seen what Basin Tale, Osman Ayariga, and the sector minister, Pablo, are doing for the youth. It is very instructive that we invest so much in the young people of this country, because they ultimately ought to be the ones who now hold the levers of this country. And so if we are intentional about designing policies that addresses their fundamental teething challenges and creating opportunities for the young people of this country, I think in a final analysis the country will stand to benefit. And so with the investments that they've made so far in the youth sector, I think it's good, and that finds expression in the Great Transformational Plan. So yes, generally, if you look at the overarching performance of this administration, you would say that there are some components or aspects of their policy which finds expression in the Great Transformational Plan.
Okay. Will Alan be open to an appointment from John Dramani Mahama?
I am not in a position to answer for Alan Kodjo Martin.
But will you?
Again, we all have our roles to play, all right? And so, for instance, we would be on the side of sort of directing the government on matters, for instance, of policy, right? On policy, on matters of, let's say, for instance, what I just told you, youth development. We are open to share our ideas. And for the very reason that we presented our Great Transformational Plan to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, it is also very telling that we really want to contribute in our own small way to the development of Ghana. I told you that if we did that and the country became better, all of us would benefit. And so, yeah, we may not perhaps actively accept any political appointment, but we would in our own way offer what we can to support this country and to
support. So if the president picks up a phone, calls you and says, Kwame, I want you to serve in my government, I want to give you an appointment to serve in my government actively, you would say, Mr. President, I respectfully decline?
That's what I'm saying, that it depends on, what the president would want from us, okay? So for instance, if it is something that does not align with my ideology or things that we believe in, we would respectfully decline, because you see, you have to accept an appointment, or you have to accept an invitation that aligns with your ideologies and your beliefs. Now, what I'm saying is this: that's, for instance, I am really interested in the development of the youth. I am interested in the development of the elderly, and that is why I have my own policy. In fact, I drafted a policy. It's one of the reasons why Alan Chemate considered me. All right, I drafted a policy for the aged, Ghana Rural Aging Support Program. All right, so I still have that policy lying down. So if you want to, let's say, ask me to handle that aspect of your governance, why not? Because it is something that I believe in, something that I support, something that I would die to ensure it germinates. Because I believe in the young people and I believe in the elderly. The reason being that if you are a young person and you work so diligently to assist or help the country grow, and you know that once you age, the country will take care of you, you would kill yourself to work to ensure that the country develops, because you know that when you age, the country will take care of you. And that is precisely that disconnect that there exists that we ought to bridge. Once we bridge it, everything will be fine. People will work and make sure that they contribute what they have to the development of this country. And for me, that is what keeps me much more interested in politics. And so, yeah, if the president wants to look at, for instance, the aged, I'm very interested in the aged, particularly those who live in the rural communities. Because when I traversed the country, I had serious engagement with our mothers and our fathers.
Our policies in that regard, have they worked? LEAP, for instance.
You see, so the concept of LEAP is a very beautiful concept, but the implementation of it, because sometimes you have the policy, ideation period, and then you have the policy implementation period. Now, the question then becomes whether we are able to now create the policy sustainability period. And usually, it is where we falter. So yes, ideation, implementation, yes. But when it comes to sustainability, we don't know what to do. LEAP is good, but my policy is a little different from LEAP. And I'm sure when you have the time and you invite me again to talk about the Ghana Rural Aging Support Program, I would grasp. So I would now elucidate and give you the differences between my policy and that of LEAP.
Fantastic. We have some few minutes to go. Unfortunately, we'll have to wrap up the conversation. But then, two of your seniors have been very busy on social media. Tayo Sori and Godfrey Dami. What do you make of all that has been happening?
I think they are legal might in their own right. I leave it at that.
but that doesn't really put. It doesn't give you a good picture.
Well, to be fair, what the beauty of the law is the strength in your argument.
Okay.
And so if, I'm learning by the day, because you see, they are all putting forward some strong arguments. And it's a learning curve for all of us. I'll leave it at that. I mean, I don't want to veer into matters of controversy. These guys are giants, within the legal space. And they are my seniors by far. I respect them. I respect their achievements. And I respect all they've done.
Kwame, we need to go, but what's next for you?
What's next?
Yes.
Well, again, we'll do what we can to support Mother Ghana. Right. And we will do what we can to ensure that, Ghana succeeds and that all of us, get better by the day.
It's been a pleasure having you here.
Pleasure.
Kwame Owusu Danso, private legal practitioner, also 2024 running mate to Alan Kodjo Trematin on the ticket of the Movement for Change, having a conversation with us on a myriad of issues here on State of Affairs. That's all time will allow us tonight. Thank you so much for sticking and staying with us on the show. We're back next week, same time here on GHOne Television. I'm Joshua Mensah. Good night.